Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for this tutorial on Chaturanga Dandasana, the low plank. This is a pose that I find creates a lot of anxiety for people, mainly because it seems like it should be pretty simple. Most of us have done or do push-ups in our regular exercise regimens. However, Chaturanga is just a different beast altogether in that it actually is a transition pose, but it's a very vital transition pose. When you are moving through a sun salutation and you go from that high plank to that low plank, moving into the up dog, the alignment of your Chaturanga really makes or breaks your up dog, meaning if you're out of alignment, it can be a struggle to really lift into the up dog, the back can feel jammed, the body just doesn't feel right. But if you learn the finer points of Chaturanga, your up dog will just blossom and grow. So what I'm really going to focus on here in this tutorial are three things. The first one is going to be the arms, so the hands and the arms and where those go, how they bend, all of that. The second will be the alignment from the shoulders to the hips, and the third will be where your gaze goes. All of those influence the, let's say, success, the health of your Chaturanga is probably a better way to put it. And I will be demonstrating it with knees on the ground as well as knees off the ground. So a modified version and then the full version. I hope you find this helpful. I hope it just increases the range of your practice and opens up all these new doors for you to grow your practice, especially if you're doing this at home in the time of COVID. So let's go ahead and get started. And so the first thing we want to work on is the placement of the hands and the arms. So we're going to start on knees. And when you come into your modified version of Chaturanga, you're going to notice it's not a traditional tabletop where your knees are directly under your hips. You're going to have your knees a little farther back, just to give you a little bit of range to play with as you're lowering to the earth. And then your hands are going to be directly under your shoulders. Your palms are flat with your fingers spread. Now, for most of us, when we think of a low plank, we think of a low push-up. So the tendency is to turn the elbows out and down. In Chaturanga, however, you want to squeeze the elbows in and then bend them as you lower. So it's almost like the insides of your arms are touching your rib cage. So when you're first set up here, instead of having your elbows turned out to the sides, you want to draw them in so the insides of your elbows are going to be pointing straight ahead. And then as you begin to lower, you're just going to hug the elbows in, and you're only going to drop as far as you can control your pose. So even if it's like half an inch, that's okay. What you don't want to do is drop down really, really low, or drop down in a way that causes you to fall straight to the ground. So when you're starting to bend your elbows, turning them in, hugging the sides of your arms to your rib cage, and then bending just enough that you can control your pose. Right? So that's the first part. And the second part is going to be the alignment from the shoulders to the hips. So once you've got your hands where they need to be, once your elbows are turned towards the top of your mat and you're hugging your arms in, as you begin to bend your elbows, you want to keep the line from your shoulders to your hips straight. So instead of dipping here, like some of us will feel like we do, or dropping forward as others will feel like, you want to begin to lower straight down. And you don't want to take your shoulders any lower than your elbows. So nothing here, you want to stop right at your elbows. So again, that's going to look like this. One other point to note when you're doing your Chaturanga, you're not dropping straight down. You're actually shifting forward first, so your shoulders are coming ahead of your wrists, and then you're bending your elbows to give you more control and less crowding around your shoulders and your elbows. So again, shifting forward, hugging the elbows in, and lowering no lower than your elbows. For anyone who tends to dip forward over time, it's going to cause a lot of shoulder issues. For anyone who tends to dip here, it's going to cause a lot of lower back crunching and discomfort. So you really want to work on keeping the body straight like a board as you lower down. Good. Now the third part of our Chaturanga practice is the gaze, your drishti. So your drishti wants to be straight ahead as you lower down. When you start, if you're in your high plank, you're looking straight down between your hands. But once you take that shift forward, you look ahead of you and then you lower down. And the reason for that is if you're still looking down and you start to lower, notice what happens. My back sort of curves, my butt sticks out, my shoulders dip too low. So everything has to stay in that straight line, and the final piece of that is your gaze. So if we're starting here in the modified version, looking ahead as you shift forward, lowering halfway. And all of that builds you into a lovely lift into your upward facing dog. Okay? So I'm going to show that from a different angle, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so from the front, this is how we want to be focused on the arms, the shoulders, and the gaze. Starting on the knees, you place your hands directly under your shoulders. Knees down, remember, is a modified high plank. So as we stay here, the elbows are turned into start. Knees are slightly behind the hips and gazing straight between the hands. As you begin to shift forward into that modified high plank, the elbows are going to turn forward. You're shifting forward, looking ahead, and then bending the elbows so that the shoulders drop to elbow height. And that's how it looks. Let's do that again. Looking down to start, hands under shoulders, palms fully flat. That's also very key. And then looking ahead, shifting ahead, hugging the elbows in, and dropping down. Okay, one more time. Starting looking straight down, look ahead, shift ahead, arms in, and lower. Okay, so now that I've shown the modified version, now I'm going to show the full expression of Chaturanga from a high plank position. So remember when I started on my hands and my knees, it was a modified version of a high plank that I was moving from. Now I'm going to do a full high plank into a low plank. Pay attention to the elbows hugging in. Notice the body will shift forward in order to lower down, and then my gaze goes straight ahead to keep me from dipping or dropping anywhere, okay? One thing I really want to stress here, if you are practicing that full expression of Chaturanga, it's really important to keep your legs engaged because your arms are not the only thing supporting you here. Even though it is a lot of upper body work, you have to engage your legs the whole time so that your body is balanced and you avoid that tip forward or that sagging in the hips, okay? So coming into full high plank, notice my shoulders are over my wrists. Hands directly beneath my shoulders. And instead of having my legs sort of sagged, they're nice and strong. My core is pulled in tight, and I start gazing between my hands. Now from my high plank, I'm going to shift forward, look ahead, and then lower. If I keep my gaze down and I shift, see what happens? Or if my legs aren't fully engaged, that's what it looks like. So fully engaged everywhere, fully lined up, elbows turn forward, arms hug in, look forward, shift forward, and then lower. I hope this has been helpful. Please, if you have any questions or comments, submit them below. I love hearing from you guys, love hearing what you want to learn more about, what questions you have specifically. I could literally go on about this for like an hour. In the interest of time and attention span, I'm keeping it short. So if you feel like there are any lingering questions for you, please feel free to reach out. Happy to hear from you. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And I thank you guys so much for stopping by.